Lord Father would have said it was a fool's errand, travelling through the unforgiving passes of the Vale of Arryn with naught but a sellsword for company. And perhaps Lord Tywin would be right, but then again, what else was a dwarf to do? He had escaped the clutches of Lady Catelyn and her sister, the mad Lysa Arryn, only to trade one cage for another, a cage of rock and sky, with a fall to greet him at every turn. Now he was on the run, a Lannister dwarf and a low-born sellsword, with a bounty on their heads and the dreaded mountain clans of the Vale closing in. Tyrion had found a small, sheltered spot just off the high road, nestled amongst a stand of aspens, their leaves a shiver of gold and green. The sun was beginning its slow descent behind the jagged peaks, painting the sky in streaks of blood and fire, but the chill of the mountain air was already setting in, and a fire, however foolhardy, was what his bones craved. He had gathered a clutch of wood and turned to Bronn, who stood watch with a bored indifference that belied the danger they were in. "Will this do?" Tyrion asked, holding up a crooked branch. Bronn's eyes, as sharp and cold as flint, darted around their surroundings before settling on Tyrion. "Have you a death wish, little lord? A fire will be a beacon to every clansman in the Vale. They'll be honest before the flames are a foot high." Bronn, ever the pragmatist, argued for a path of stealth and silence. Travel fast, travel at night, stay off the road, and make no noise. But Tyrion, who had seen his share of mountains and men, knew better. "Travelling fast at night is a good way to fall down a mountain," he said, his voice laced with an exhaustion that came not from the journey, but from the constant struggle to survive. "And the clans will find us no matter what we do. Then we're dead men," Bronn replied, a grim finality in his tone. Tyrion's mouth quirked into a small, wry smile. "Then I would prefer to die comfortable. Can you find some game? I've no love for the salt beef and hard bread that Lysa Arryn foisted upon us. The Eyrie may have been a marvel of architecture, but its hospitality was a bitter draught." Bronn's response was a sneer, a threat as sharp as any dagger. "Give me the horse and I'll be off." "What would you do then?" "I'd probably die," Tyrion replied, the blunt honesty of the words hanging in the crisp mountain air. "You believe I'd do it?" Bronn pressed, a hint of challenge in his voice. "I do," Tyrion admitted, recalling the way Bronn had so swiftly dispatched Chigon, a fellow sellsword who had been wounded by a stray arrow. "You were quick enough to finish off Chigon when he took an arrow in the belly." Bronn shrugged, a careless gesture that dismissed a man's life as easily as a fly. "He was as good as dead anyway. He would have done the same for me." Bronn made it clear he was not a friend or a servant, but a hired blade who had fought for Tyrion for a singular purpose: to win the trial by combat. Tyrion, in turn, accepted this with a good-natured laugh. "I'm mainly interested in your sword, not your friendship." When Bronn, with a sly grin, asked how Tyrion knew he would be his champion, Tyrion's mind went back to the events that had led them here. He hadn't known for certain, but he had gambled on Bronn's sellsword nature, his greed. Bronn had helped take him captive in the first place, hoping for a reward from Lady Stark. But Tyrion knew the proud, high and mighty Northmen would never truly accept a man like Bronn into their service. Tyrion, a man who understood the language of gold better than most, had calculated that Bronn would abandon one profitable venture for the next. Bronn, impressed by Tyrion's wit, warned him that his bold tongue would one day get him killed. "Someday, someone will cut it out and make you eat it," he said. "Everyone tells me that," Tyrion quipped, his eyes twinkling in the fading light. He then declared that Bronn, for all his low-born scumminess, was not stupid and knew where his best interests lay. It was a truth that had proven, and would likely continue to prove, to be Tyrion's salvation. Bronn, with a quick flick of flint and steel, proved his usefulness by setting the fire ablaze. The flames danced and crackled, banishing the encroaching darkness. "You are also useful," Tyrion said, a genuine note of admiration in his voice. "Almost as good with a sword as my brother, Jaime." "What is it you want?" Tyrion asked, the question a promise and a test. "Gold, land, women? Keep me alive and you shall have it all." Bronn, ever the cynic, cut to the heart of the matter. "And what happens if you die?" Tyrion's reply was a flash of gallows humour. "Then you will have one sincere mourner." Bronn scoffed. "I'm no man's toady." "And I'm sure you're no man's friend," Tyrion countered, his tone hardening just a bit. He knew the risk he was taking, placing his life in the hands of a man who would betray him for a profit, just as Lady Stark had. But he added one more clause to their unspoken pact. "Just remember, if there is a price offered to betray me, I will match it, for I like living." With that, Bronn disappeared into the night, a shadow swallowed by the shadows, to go hunting for their meal. An hour later, they were gnawing on the tough, roasted meat of a goat. The fire crackled merrily, a brazen defiance to the unforgiving mountains. "This goat is a beast," Tyrion grumbled, though he did not complain too loudly. At the Eyrie, he would have had to dance on a precipice for a single boiled bean. Bronn, ever the pragmatist, brought up the matter of the turnkey, the jailer who had freed Tyrion from the sky cells. "You gave the turnkey a purse of gold," Bronn said, a hint of accusation in his voice. "A Lannister always pays his debts," Tyrion replied, the words a mantra etched into the very soul of his house. He had kept his silver, a small bit of prudence in a world of madness, but had promised the turnkey the rest of his payment should he ever tire of Lady Arryn's service. Bronn, chewing thoughtfully on a piece of gristle, asked where they were headed after they reached the river. "A whore, a featherbed, and wine for a start," Tyrion said, a lecherous smile spreading across his face. "Then on to Casterly Rock or King's Landing. I have questions about a certain dagger." Bronn seemed surprised, a flicker of genuine shock in his eyes. "You're truly innocent?" "Of what they accused me of, yes," Tyrion said, the truth of the words a bitter taste on his tongue. He had not conspired to murder his nephew, but he was a Lannister, and that, in the eyes of many, was a crime in itself. As the night wore on, Tyrion noted the unusual silence. "The clansmen are taking their time," he observed. "I'd fear a trap with them being so open," Bronn replied, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. "We should sing to scare them away," Tyrion suggested, a whimsical notion born of the wine they had found and the goat they had eaten. He began to whistle a tune, an old song that spoke of love and loss. "Have you heard it before?" he asked Bronn. "In inns and whorehouses," Bronn replied, a note of cynicism in his voice. Tyrion's mind drifted back in time, to a different place, a different life. "The first girl I ever bedded used to sing it." He told Bronn the story of Tysha, the lowborn girl he and Jaime had rescued from two would-be rapists. She was a year older than him, half-starved and unwashed, but to a 13-year-old boy, she was a revelation. He had taken her to an inn, where they shared a meal and wine. The drink went to his head, and he found himself in bed with her. He broke her maidenhead, and she wept. But then she kissed him. He had found a drunken septon to marry them, and for a fortnight they had played at being man and wife in a small, rented cottage. But the dream had shattered when the septon, sobered by time and a fear of Lord Tywin, had confessed everything. Jaime was forced to admit that Tysha was a whore and the whole thing was a setup. Lord Tywin, in a display of cruelty that Tyrion would never forget, had given Tysha to his barracks of guardsmen, paying her a silver for each one. He had made Tyrion go last, forcing him to pay her a gold coin, because a Lannister always pays his debts. Bronn, his face a mask of stone, said, "I would have killed the man who did that to me." "I might yet," Tyrion replied, the words a vow and a threat, as he rolled into his shadowskin cloak to sleep. He dreamed of the sky cells, but this time he was the jailer, driving his father back to the abyss. A sharp elbow to the ribs from Bronn woke him. "Quiet," the sellsword hissed, a warning in his voice. Tyrion, his mind clearing from the dregs of sleep and the wine, motioned for Bronn to stay still. Then, with a voice that carried through the quiet mountain air, he called out, "Join us! We have goat!" A voice replied from the darkness. "It's our mountain. The goat is ours." Tyrion smiled, a knowing, dangerous expression. "It is." "What are your names?" A large man, armed with 2 axes, stepped into the firelight. His name, he declared, was Shagga, and they were stone crows. Slowly, the rest of the clansmen emerged, a ragtag band armed with everything from swords to pitchforks. There was Gunthor, who seemed to be their chief, and Conn, a gaunt man with a cruel smile. Tyrion introduced himself as a member of Clan Lannister and offered to pay for the goat. Gunthor, his eyes narrowed with suspicion, asked what he had to give. "Silver, weapons and armor," Tyrion replied, a hint of desperation in his voice. Conn laughed, a cold, humourless sound. "You'll pay with our own coin. We can take what we want from your corpses." "We have nothing to give but our lives," Gunthor said, his voice a low growl. "How would you like to die?" Tyrion's answer was a bolt of pure, unexpected wit. "In my own bed, with a belly full of wine and a maiden's mouth around my cock, at the age of 80. Shagga laughed, a booming sound that echoed through the valley, but the others remained unimpressed. Gunthor ordered Conn to kill Bronn and take Tyrion to milk goats and make the mothers laugh. Bronn, ever ready for a fight, sprang to his feet, asking who would die first. "Stop!" Tyrion screamed. He looked at the clansmen, their crude weapons a testament to their poverty. "Are those the best weapons you could steal? My father's smiths shit better weapons than that." Gunthor, thinking of the starving women and children of his tribe, saw a glimmer of hope. He asked what Tyrion would give them for their lives. "The Vale of Arryn," Tyrion said, his words a promise of wealth and power that would forever change the lives of the mountain clans. It was the boldest gamble of his life,